Good morning, everybody. Hope you had a good weekend. Welcome to the Monday morning coaching call. If you have things going well, things going poorly, now's a good time to let us know. You can type those in, or if you're on a telephone where you can, or a headset where you can actually raise your hand, we can open up the lines as well. So we can all benefit from things that are going poorly. We can fix them right here for you, or if they're going well, we'd love to hear success stories as well. So with that said, we'll Trish, would you interrupt us if somebody raises their hand or types in a question? Good. And then today, Jeff is going to do the coaching call on our sale calculator, sales software. So thanks, Jeff, for doing that.
Sure, you bet. So good morning, guys. Today we're going to talk, in addition to the sale plan, we're going to talk about income planning. And so I'll be throwing out some ideas for things that you could end up talking about in an implementation meeting. And we could go into detail on case design, and we could dig deep on product, or we could kind of dig deep in the how, or the scripts, if you will, of presenting income solutions at the implementation meeting. And to a certain extent, I'll touch on all of those things, but we're not going to go into a lot of detail on all of those things because that would take all morning. So today is really kind of the 10,000-foot view of income planning in the implementation meeting. And my goal is just to give you an idea of the two basic income plans that you might present so that you'll have something to build on. Obviously, when it comes to a specific plan for a specific client, you'll want to call me or call ECA for details. And so kind of with that, let's parachute into the final meeting of the process, the implementation meeting. So up to this point, we've gathered data, we've created that 21-point checklist proposal, and we've gone through it with the client. And as a result, the client's told us, you know, we don't want to work with our guy anymore. We want to work with you. So what would you recommend? Now, keep in mind, because we're working with people that are generally 55 and older, kind of that 55 to 75 is our wheelhouse, those people in particular are going to be looking for investment options as you kind of head into the implementation meeting. So when you look at those people, they're going to kind of come into two flavors when you start talking about solutions. They're going to be those that want an income solution. Typically, those are going to be people who are taking income now, and so they'll be interested in seeing something that will give them the income that they need now. Others will be kind of looking for some sort of a growth and safety plan with an option for future income. And what I mean by that is these people aren't going to be taking income now. They're living primarily off their pensions and their Social Security, and they've got these accounts sitting out there that they're not currently tapping into. But if you were to kind of ask them, is this something that you want to be able to take income from sometime in the future? They're all going to say, well, yeah, I mean, there's the possibility that, yeah, we'd want to take income from this in the future. So, yeah, we'd want to look at that. So there are people that are going to want to take income now, and those that aren't taking income now but are going to tell you, maybe because of the way you ask it, is there the possibility that you might want to take income from these assets sometime in the future? Everybody always ends up saying, yeah, there's at least the possibility, and we want to look at that possibility. So knowing that we're going to be showing people income solutions, I think it helps sometimes if we look first at the ways that income have been taken from portfolios in the past. Because if we understand what's been done in the past and what they might be doing now, I think it helps when it comes time to present alternatives or options for them. Okay, so first, the option that was primarily used in the past, very popular, but it's kind of fallen out of favor, was to use bonds and the interest that bonds generate for retirement income. And so the idea was to invest in bonds to kind of safely generate and guarantee the income you need in retirement. The problem was this. Let's say you needed $40,000 per year in income, and bonds were paying 4%. So bonds are paying 4%, you need $40,000 per year. If you kind of work backwards, how much do you have to put in bonds in order to generate that $40,000 per year in 4% interest? Well, you had to put $1 million worth in bonds. And so the first problem is you have to put a lot of money into bonds. Generally, when we're working with people in that 500,000 to $1.5 million, that's the majority, if not all, of their portfolio. So they're really going all in with that strategy. Everything's going into bonds. And when you retired at 65, which was the traditional retirement age, and you lived to be 72, which was kind of the standard average life expectancy, you could kind of make that work. But now with people retiring earlier and earlier and living longer and longer, we don't have this 7-year time frame. We've got these 30-year time frames in retirement. So now we have everything going into bonds, which makes us really susceptible to interest rate risk. And because we're living longer, we have to worry about inflation. And when you retired at 65 and lived to be 72, you didn't really have to worry that much about inflation. But with people retiring at 60 and living to be 90, inflation becomes a real problem. And so while that worked in the past and it was recommended a lot in the past for obvious reasons, it's not recommended much anymore. So you're not going to see people that are relying strictly on that strategy. Because people started to understand that that has a lot of problems, particularly with inflation if we're going to be retired a lot longer, what they went to was kind of this mix of stocks and bonds. They would try and cobble together these portfolios of stocks and bonds. The idea was the bonds would give us some interest, but the stocks would give us growth, and that would help us with inflation. You take kind of this mix of interest and dividends and growth, and you kind of take your income from all of those things. Some months it might be interest, some months it might be dividends, some months it might be growth. But the real problem with that kind of portfolio, and you'll see that kind of portfolio a lot, where people have this big bucket of money with a mix of stocks and bonds, is that the markets have to cooperate for that to work. Because if you start taking money when the markets are down, you're really decimating a portfolio, and you start to exponentially increase the likelihood that you're going to outlive your income. And we've talked a lot about that in the past. Taking money in a down year means you'll probably outlive your income. Now, here's the question. Could stocks and bonds both be down at the same time? The answer is, yeah. Obviously, stocks and bonds could both be down at the same time. We've seen that happen a couple of times in the last decade. And so the only true fix for that is to take less income when the markets are down. So your income isn't predictable. And these people are looking for income that's predictable and reliable. And if what you're relying on is the markets cooperating, especially over a 30-year time frame, your income isn't going to be predictable. Now, there was kind of a solution that was kind of popularized in the 90s, and that was the 4% solution. It was the idea that, well, if you just stick to 4% withdrawals, you could adjust those for inflation, and there's a high likelihood that you won't outlive your income in those situations if you were to do that, stick to that. The problem is the word's high likelihood. It was never a guarantee. It was kind of an 80-85% chance that you wouldn't outlive your income, meaning there was a 15 to 20% chance that even if you only stuck to 4% withdrawals, that you would outlive your income. And the other problem with that is as people started living longer, is economists started to realize, we haven't built in any ugly surprises, what we call ugly surprises. The fact that you might get sick and you'd have to spend a lot of money. You'd have to raid your portfolio to cover your medical costs. Or the fact that your home might be hit by a tornado and you'd have to raid your portfolio for that replacement for the roof, or for a replacement home. And so when you factor in ugly surprises, it makes it very, very unlikely that the money will last using 4% withdrawals. So then we kind of come to the final alternative. We've looked at bonds and the problem with bonds. We've looked at a mix of stocks and bonds and the problem with the market's having to cooperate, which is highly unlikely now that we're talking about 30-year time spans. We've come to variable annuities with an income rider, and I always say that's kind of like a fallen cake. And the reason is it looks like it should work. I mean, it kind of looks like a cake and kind of tastes like a cake, but when you dig a little bit deeper, there are some problems with it. The first being that the fees that they charge on those are usually tied to the income accounts. And so the fees increase over time. And really, at the point where you're turning it on for income, which is the whole goal, if you're using it for income planning, the step-ups become meaningless at the point that you turn on the income. And there was always the problem with disclosure, and that's what we kind of leverage. What happens if you take out more than the withdrawal cap that they're giving you? If they tell you you can withdraw $5,000 a year from your portfolio because that's 5% from the variable annuity, what happens if you needed $6,000? Well, we know what happens. They void the income guarantee. It resets as if it just started from day one, and the amount of income that you can take drops by a lot. Again, you don't have reliable and predictable income. And what happens if you die? I mean, that income rider works at cross purposes with the death benefit. For all practical purposes, it voids the death benefit. But like we ask people, do you think they stop charging it? Or do you think you continue to have to pay even though it's not going to work anymore at the point that you use that income rider? So there were a lot of disclosure issues with that. And so the question becomes, is there a better strategy? Is there a better way than the things that we've looked at? Because we've seen the problems with bonds, we've seen the problems with kind of that mix of stocks and bonds, and we've seen the problems with variable annuities with income riders. So is there a better strategy? And if we were to try and go and build the perfect solution, what are the things that we'd want to consider? Well, I always say let's start by asking this question, and it seems at first like kind of a strange question. The question is this: when a mountain climber sets out to climb a mountain, what's his goal? Well, you would think the goal is kind of to make it to the top. That's the whole point of climbing mountains. But if you ask a professional mountain climber what's their goal, they would tell you our goal is to make it safely up and safely down the mountain. Because most accidents, most fatalities occur on the way down the mountain. And there are a lot of reasons for that, but that's the case. And so the reason I bring that up is that, you know, our clients, all of us really, have a goal to retire someday. And the people that we're working with, those people in that kind of 55 to 75 age range, we're probably meeting with them because they've reached the summit, or they're within sight of the summit, that summit of retiring and having enough money to be able to do it. So they've done a good job of planning when it comes to reaching the top. Now what they need is a good plan to make it safely down, because that's when most accidents are likely to occur. That's when you're going to run into problems, when you are retired and you're pulling money out of the portfolio. See, it's a whole different mindset than accumulating money to be able to retire. I mean, you're working and working and working and accumulating money, but the people that we've seen or are seeing are there. Now their problem is making it down that mountain safely. So we always say retiring is hard. It's hard to get to a point where you have the money to be able to retire. But staying retired is actually harder. And why is that? Well, it's because when they look, there are a lot of risks to staying retired. The first is market risk, or the risk that the markets won't cooperate. See, when they do these studies of people in retirement pulling money out of their portfolios to kind of supplement their incomes, what they learn is that the sequence of turns matters more than the rate of return. So here's what I mean by that. When you're not pulling money out of the portfolio, then you can have an up year, a down year, an up year, an up year, an up year, a down year, an up year, a down year. You have this variation in the returns. And that doesn't really matter that much as long as you're not pulling money out, because the up years will make up for the down years. We saw that in 2008. People lost a lot of money in 2008, upwards of 40%. But if they didn't touch it, they made all that back by 2013. So it didn't hurt them. But when you're retired and you're pulling money out, if you pull money out in a down year, if you needed money in 2008, you did a lot of damage to your portfolio. So the sequence of returns matters more than the actual rate of return when you're retired. And really, the ability of a portfolio to last longer than you do depends on a favorable sequence of returns. And here's the reality. When we were talking from 65 to 72, we didn't have a lot of problems, or we didn't have to worry about that all that much. But now we're talking about 30-year time horizons, people retiring at 60 and living to be 90. During that 3 years, they're bound to hit a rough patch. The idea that the markets or the sequence of returns is going to cooperate over a 30-year period of time, it's unrealistic. It's never happened. Then there's longevity risk. The risk that maybe you plan to live to 90, but you actually live to be 96 or 97. The risk that we'll live longer than our planned for time horizon. There's also inflation risk, because the cost of things goes up over time. And our portfolios need to keep up if we don't want to outlive our money. And then there's liquidity risk. We talked about this, and we talk about it quite a bit when we talk about ugly surprises. The risk that we won't have the financial flexibility to handle emergencies or ugly surprises. And finally, there's the very real risk of health. The risk that you're going to get sick as you age, or that you're going to need long-term care. And that having to pull money out to pay those medical costs, which everybody knows are high and going higher, could really hurt our ability to make our portfolio last. So there are a lot of risks to staying retired. In a perfect world, what economists and academics would say is that people would diversify their sources of income in retirement. And so let me show you what income diversification looks like. Looks like this. You'd have some money in asset management to give you the flexibility for emergencies. You'd have longevity insurance in case you live too long. You'd have equity income guarantees. You'd have long-term care insurance. You'd also have a longevity income guarantee. And you might even have life insurance. So you'd have all those things working in your portfolio. In retirement, on the way down, descending the mountain kind of portfolio would look like this. And you'd have all of those components. But what people actually have is this. That's the asset allocation model, where they just have some money in large cap, small cap, mid cap, some bonds, some international, and maybe some alternative investments. That's your classic climbing the mountain or accumulation portfolio. And when they come in to see you, they're not going to have this. They're going to have that. And this kind of portfolio only addresses the need for flexibility. All the other risks to staying retired aren't addressed. There's still market risk with that kind of a portfolio. There's still longevity risk with that kind of portfolio. There's still inflation risk with that kind of portfolio. And there's still health risk with that kind of portfolio. And that means you're kind of vulnerable to the possibility, the risk of running out of money in your lifetime. So let's just talk about risk for a moment. If we look strictly at risk, particularly risks in retirement or risks in general, we really only have a few options when it comes to ways of dealing with risk. So this is kind of a diagram, if you will, of what you could do or how you could deal with risk. So the first thing we could do is just try and avoid risk. And it says not participate in activities that result in a chance of loss. Well, here's the problem with that in retirement. Most of the risks that we talked about or looked at to staying retired, quite frankly, they're unavoidable. I mean, like health issues as you age. I mean, you can't avoid that. Or down markets. We can't do anything about that. We don't have any control over that. Or inflation. So avoiding the risks in retirement, that's not really an option. We could retain the risk. We could just keep the risk and deal with it. But with those risks, with that many risks, market risk, longevity risk, inflation, health risk, flexibility, with those number of risks over such a long period of time, possibly 30, 35 years, it's bound to catch up to you. Eventually, you're going to crash and burn. And that's why people are realizing that, you know, they have this fear of running out of money. That fear of running out of money is just sort of that subconscious realization that we're asking for too many things to, we're asking the stars to all line up for too long a period of time. It's not going to happen. So avoiding and retaining the risk, not possibilities, not options. How about reducing the risk? Yeah, I think reducing the risk, I think that could work. That's a good option. But here's the problem with reducing the risk, particularly for the people that we're talking about in their situation. That only works for so long. I mean, I guess you could live a healthy lifestyle, but that only puts off the chance that you're going to have a health emergency for so long. Or you could reduce risk by systematically transferring money from stocks to bonds, kind of that attempt to kind of tamp down that market risk. But moving money from bonds out of stocks and into bonds can hurt you at times as much as help you. And so reducing risk is a temporary fix at best. And what we're really looking for is a long-term solution. So in a perfect world, you transfer all of your risk to someone else. I mean, that would be the permanent solution to your problem. But how could you do that? Because this income diversification over here, that looks kind of complicated and that looks hard. I mean, if I were to try and go out and buy all these different kinds of solutions and have some money being managed, that would be really, really difficult. And I'm pretty sure none of us have ever seen portfolios like that because it's so difficult and so hard as to be darn near unrealistic. So what's the solution? Well, it turns out that the investment industry kind of came up with an elegant solution, a way around all of those problems. And it was fixed annuities with income riders. Because when you look at a fixed annuity with an income rider, what you find out is that it addresses market risk. Your income doesn't fluctuate with the market, so you don't really have to worry about the sequence of returns anymore. It addressed the risk of longevity because your income is guaranteed for life. It also addresses or can address or has the option of addressing the risk of inflation because you do have the option of including inflation protection in the products that are out there these days. It can even address health risks because many of these annuities have these long-term care income doublers. So we addressed a lot of the risks, really nearly all of the risks to being retired with one product. So when we look at incorporating that product into the solutions that we're going to show people at the implementation meeting, there are really two primary strategies for doing that, for incorporating fixed annuities with income riders into a plan that you would show people. And so we're going to look at these two solutions. We're going to look at these two strategies, but regardless of which you use, in both cases, with both strategies, you're going to have to do a couple of things. The first thing is you're going to have to set expectations. You're going to have to define the parameters of a good solution so that you and the client are on the same page. Because remember, when you get to the end of the disclosure meeting, what they're going to tell you is, yeah, you haven't looked at any investments. What you've done is you've looked at their situation so that they could tell you that, yeah, we're fine, or no, we're not fine. And what they end up saying is, we're not fine, but not for the reason that we thought. We're not fine because our guy isn't trustworthy. And so we don't want to work with him anymore. We want to work with you. What are our options? Well, at this point, because you haven't really discussed any investments, we have to kind of set in place some parameters for an option. We're going to have to come back with something, and we need some idea of what to come back with. And so we have to define the parameters or set expectations. And the way that we do that in that disclosure meeting is really in two places. Number one is when we have the conversation about asset weighting. We're going to show them what their current situation looks like, and they're going to tell us, yeah, we're overweighted. We're either overweighted in equities or we're overweighted in safe, and that's a problem. And the reason our guy didn't tell us about it is because he wanted to make those sales. He didn't want us to know. He was more interested in the commission that he was going to make than he was about us. Now, once they come to that conclusion, we're going to ask them, where do you need to be? What direction do you need to come back to? And they'll tell you, well, we need to be less risky. We need to pull back a little bit. We have the conversation about what economists say makes sense, what a percentage based on their age would make sense for them. But then we're going to tell them, you know, it's your money, and at the end of the day, you have to be comfortable with the percentages. So the economists would say, for you, 60% should be safe and 40% should be in the market. But what are your thoughts? What's a good number for you? And I want them to come back with a number. A lot of times they'll say, well, no, 60-40 looks good. I think that makes sense. Other times they'll say, well, I would be okay with 50-50. I'm okay with taking a little bit more risk. 50-50 works for me. But whatever number they settle on, not the number the economists settle on, the number that they settle on, using the economists as kind of a benchmark for what's reasonable, whatever number they settle on, I'm going to ask them. So you're more comfortable, even though economists say 60% safe, 40% at risk, you're more comfortable with 50-50. Yeah, 50-50 makes more sense to us. So if I came back with a plan that had 50% of your money in growth and 50% in safe, is that the kind of plan that you'd be looking for? Now, why am I doing that? Two reasons. Number one, now I know kind of in a broad sense what I need to come back with. 50-50. How do I know that? Because that's what they said. And another reason is now they're giving some thought to what kind of a thing would I be looking for at the next meeting. I'm not going to try and spring a surprise solution on them. They're going to be thinking, yeah, I think 50, if you came back with the plan that was 50-50, yeah, I mean, that would be kind of what we would be looking for. Now they're giving it some thought. So now we're all on the same page of what we should be looking at next time. And I got it straight from them. So now I don't have to guess or wonder, is this kind of what they're looking for? That's what they're looking for. They told me 50-50. Yeah, if you came back with a plan like that, that's something we'd be interested in seeing. Now the second place that I sort of set parameters and define the expectations is at the very end of the disclosure meeting. There's no topic for this. But at the end, I might say something like this. You know, we've talked about all these things, and we covered a lot. And again, the problem was what? Well, our guy isn't telling us these things. And why not? Well, because he's only looking out for himself. He doesn't care about us. Right. So at this point, what should we do? Well, we don't want to work with him anymore. I mean, what could we do? Well, one thing we haven't talked about up to this point is income. Now, if they're taking income, I'll say you're taking about $1,000 a month out of this portfolio. Is that kind of what you would want to continue to do? Yes, that's kind of what we would want to continue to do. Or no, we would actually like it to be a little bit more, $1,100 a month. So if I came back with the plan that had 50% safe, 50% in the market, and gave you that $1,100 a month that you're looking for in income, would that be the kind of thing that you're looking for? Yeah, that's exactly what we would be looking for. Or I might say, you know, one thing we didn't talk about is income. So you're not taking money from this portfolio right now. You're doing fine with your Social Security and your pension. But is there a possibility that someday you might want to tap into these investments for income someday in the future? And because of the way I asked that, guess what everybody says? Yeah, I mean, there's the possibility, I suppose, that we might want to someday take money from this portfolio. So if I came back with a plan that was 50% safe, 50% in the market, and gave you the possibility of taking income in the future, is that the kind of thing that you'd be looking for? Yep, that's exactly what we would be looking for. And again, I'm getting that straight from them. Now I know basically what to come back with, and the solution won't just be sprung on them in the implementation meeting. They will have thought the whole time between meetings, that's kind of what I'm looking for. Okay?
Jeff?
So now they have, somebody has a question?
Yep, we have a question. Michael wants to know, what do you do if they want most in safe and we can only put 60% in safe?
Well, you have to talk to the guys at ECA. Because I think I'm not sure I understand the question, but I think what you're saying is all I can put is 60% because that's all the insurance company will take. And so ECA can help you in that particular situation to get around some suitability issues or tell you what your options are.
And then Brahma wants to know, are you doing this in the third meeting?
No, this is the disclosure meeting. At the disclosure meeting, I'm going to set some expectations because I don't know what to come back with in the implementation meeting. Here's the most frustrating call for me. Jeff, I just had a disclosure meeting with my clients and they're totally on board. They want to get away from that guy and they want to move to me. But what should I show them? Well, how much do they want in safe versus growth? Oh, I don't know, but they're conservative. What does conservative mean to them? How much income do they need? I don't know. I'm sure they'd like some. Like what? Guys, that's the problem with that is I can give you some idea of what to bring back to your client. I can give you some good ideas of what to bring back to your client. And I can give you some good ideas that will probably work, but do you want something that will probably work or do you want something that will work? See, probably work because now they're seeing it for the very first time. This is coming in at them from the blue, out of left field, and so guess what they need to do? Think about it. Hey, Brahma, we're just seeing this for the first time. It looks really good, but let us think about it. See, when you have these conversations at the end of the disclosure meeting or in the disclosure meeting, they've thought about it. I've thought about it. What I want to see is something 50-50. And I want to see something that gives me $1,100 per month or something that gives me the ability to take income in the future. So when I show that to them at the next meeting, the implementation meeting, it's not coming out of left field. It's not coming at them out of the blue. It's exactly what they said they wanted from you. And that makes it easy to put together, and it makes it easy to present, and it makes it easy for them to say yes. And if it's easy to put together, and it's easy to present, and it's easy for them to say yes, it's going to work. So regardless of which strategy, and I'm going to show you the two strategies right now, you're going to want to set some parameters so that we know what to take into the meeting and they know what they're looking for so that they can say yes. Okay? So really important that you do that. Otherwise, you're going to give them a solution and they're going to say, oh, well, I see where you put 60% safe and 40% in growth, but we're really more 50-50 people. Can you show us something like that? Well, yeah, I mean, but you've just made it another meeting. You've turned a 3-meeting process into a 4-meeting process. And if all you're doing is guessing, eventually you'll guess right. You'll narrow it down, but it's however many meetings I guess you want to have. So enough about that. strategy number one. It works best. Strategy number one works best for someone who needs immediate income. They're taking income from their portfolio now. And what it is it's the sale plan. Now on the website, and I'm going to show you the software, below the disclosure meeting software is the sale plan software. So what is the sale plan? Well, what it is it's an investment ladder that moves from less risk to more risk. And it solves for growth, safety, and income now. Now it's different than what they're doing now. And it's that contrast that makes people want to make the change now. And like I said, we're not going to dig deep necessarily today on how we present it. But you have to present it as something different than what they're doing now. See, most people are doing the cobbled together mix of stocks and bonds. They ask a single bucket of money to do too many things at once, to grow, to stay safe, and kick out income. And when you rely on one pile of money to do all those things, you inevitably experience a sense of anxiety. When the markets go down, you start thinking to yourself, uh-oh, that was my safe money, and that's my income money that just went down. So you start getting anxious, and you start making bad decisions. And sales solves that problem by segmenting the money in separate buckets, some for growth, some for safety, and some for immediate income. So how do you create that sale plan? Well, you need to know three things. You need to know how much is going into the plan, the principal. You need to know what their investment weighting preference is, how much to go in safe versus growth. And you need to know kind of what they expect for income. Okay, so you need to know how much goes into the plan, how much they want in safe versus growth, and kind of what their general expectation is for income. Now, like I said, don't guess, guys. It's by far the biggest mistake I see. Just have the conversations with the client, get it directly from them. The reason the sale presentation is so effective is that you aren't trying to convince someone to do something that they haven't even thought about before. They've thought about it before, and they've told you that's the kind of plan I want to see. So get the numbers you need from your clients at the disclosure meeting. So let's build one of these plans. Let's start inputting some of this this data. Okay, so we've got John and Mary Smith. Their age, we just averaged their age is 67. Now, where am I getting the number for how much goes into the plan? Well, I'm getting that from their statements. I know how much money they have. I might not use their savings and their checking, but all of their investment money I'm putting into this plan. How do I know what goes in this principal preservation versus market sensitive? We had that conversation when we talked in the disclosure meeting. They told me, you know, 60-40 is what the economists say, but I'd be a lot more comfortable 50-50. That's what I'd want to see, 50-50. And remember, the sale plan is for somebody who's taking income now, so they might have said, you know, right now we're taking $1,800, but if we could get more, that would be great. Well, if I could give you $1,900, oh yeah, that would be great. $1,900, $1,950. So if I came back with a plan 50-50 and gave you $1,950 a month, that's the kind of thing you'd be looking for? Yep, that's what we'd be looking for. So now I've gotten all the numbers I need from them to input into this software. Now oftentimes people ask me, well, how long should this be for? Because if you were to look at that menu, you could do it for 5, 10, 15, even 20 years. And if they're young, say 60 years old, you might think, well, I'm going to go to a 20-year time horizon, take them to 80. Always, 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 always do a 10-year time horizon. Why? Because that seems to be, just because you're showing them a 20-year time horizon, you're not locking them into a 20-year plan, but sometimes they see it as that. And I just don't want to have that weird conversation where I'm saying, you know, I know it's showing you 20 years, but just ignore that. You don't have to do it for 20 years. I'm just showing, show them a 10-year plan so you don't even have to have that conversation. they're comfortable with a 10-year time horizon. A lot of the investments that they're in now, whether even variable annuities, are 10 years. Now, what do you use for growth rates in these branches? Depends on the investments that you're using, but I'm going to start conservative. This might be laddered CDs, 2%. Branch 2, and this kind of answers the question, what are the investments inside these branches? This is probably going to be something liquid, something they can get at right away, an immediate annuity, laddered CDs, branch 2, a fixed annuity, a 5-year fixed annuity. And so the rate, you can get the rate from ECA on that. Branch 3, that's our indexed annuity. And branch 4 is their growth or market money. So this could be cash, laddered CDs, immediate annuity. Branch 2 is typically a fixed annuity. Branch 3 is an indexed annuity with an income rider. And branch 4 is the market money. I need that indexed annuity or that annuity with an income rider built into this plan because that annuity with the income rider is the only thing that's going to solve all their problems for all those other risks to staying retired. The market money, we'll use that for flexibility. But I need that annuity with an income rider right here in this plan, branch 2, maybe sometimes branches 2 and 3, so that I can solve for all those other risks in retirement. And so what you get is something that looks like this. The computer tells you, based on the fact that they have $470,000 and they want $1,950 per month with 50% in the market and 50% safe, this is how we're going to ladder it out. We're going to put $11,252 in bucket 1. That's going to give you that $1,950 per month for the first 5 years, years 1 through 5. And I'm not going to go too much into how you present it, but at the end of the 5th year, this $11,252 will be gone. But what does that allow assets 2, 3, and 4 to do? Grow. And you'll notice that asset 2 that started with $90,252 is now grown to $107,191, and we'll be able to pull our income from that in years 6 through 10. Now at the end of the 10th year, asset 2 will be gone, but during that 10 years, what have we allowed assets 3 and 4 to do? Grow. And so you'll notice at the end of those 10 years, we actually have, we started with $470,000, but because of letting those assets on the back end grow, we've actually got $516,841, and now we can turn around and do the whole thing again for another 10 years if we want to. So notice what we've done. We've eliminated market risk because the income is coming from these conservative guaranteed investments. We've eliminated longevity because you end up with more than you started with, and we are building in an annuity with an income rider to help protect against that. We've eliminated the risk of flexibility, not having flexibility, because we do have emergency money on the back end of the plan that we can tap into if we need to in the event of some sort of an emergency, whether it's a natural disaster or a health emergency. And we can build in inflation and health protection through the use of LTC doublers and the income annuity product. So that's the sale plan. That's strategy number 1. Works best for people who are taking money now. And you can find this software on the website. There are only 2 pieces of software when you look under the software on the website, the 21-point checklist software and the sale plan software. Okay? Strategy number 2. Strategy number 2 works best for someone who doesn't need income now. They want growth and safety, and then they tell you, yeah, we want to be able to take income maybe someday in the future from this portfolio. Now with strategy number 2, we still need to know what the client is comfortable with for investment weighting. We need to know what that scale looks like for them, how much in growth versus how much in safety. And we don't want to guess. So if they say they want 50-50, if you're licensed both ways, you can handle the growth money. And if you're licensed both ways, my recommendation is to go ahead and show them what you would do with that 50% in growth first. Make the growth pitch first. The reason you make the growth pitch first is because that's what's familiar to them. You're going to be showing them things that they're familiar with. Stocks, mutual funds, ETFs, whatever it is. Make that growth pitch first, and then make the safety pitch, the annuity pitch, comparing it to the alternatives that are out there, why the annuity makes sense, what the limitations with the bonds are, what the limitations with kind of this mix of stocks and bonds, and how the annuity overcomes all those limitations and actually hedges against all the other risks to retirement. And really, when you think about it, these fixed annuities with the income riders, they're ideal. I mean, we build the flexibility in with the growth assets, but you're transferring all the other risks, which means you're permanently solving for all the other risks to staying retired, and you're transferring it to an insurance company. The annuity addresses the market risk. Again, your income doesn't depend on the markets cooperating. It addresses the longevity risk, the idea that because your income is guaranteed for life. And again, inflation protection can be incorporated, and health risks are addressed by the long-term care income doublers. And these solutions, I know all of you have used these things in the past, so you're very familiar with illustrations like this. These solutions with these indexed annuities with the income riders, or fixed annuities with the income riders, they're easily customized to your client's individual circumstances. This is one that we ran recently for someone who wanted to pull $26,000 out per year and wanted to make sure that at the end of that 10th year that she could get that $26,000 a year for the rest of her life. I mean, we can, with the help of ECA, we can customize these products to everybody's individual circumstances, so it's easy. We're all very familiar with these types of illustrations. So again, strategy number one, the sale plan works best for people who want income now. Strategy number two, this growth and safety plan with annuities as the safe money, works best for people who want income in the future. And we've kind of spent the last 50 minutes or so looking at two solutions for retirement income. But they both have something in common. They both incorporate a mix of market assets for growth and insurance products for safety. And only the blend of those two investment types protect people from all the risks to staying retired. So a portfolio of only insurance investments will protect against all the risks, but it doesn't necessarily have that flexibility. And you can't do it anyway. The insurance companies won't let you, and the client won't be open to it. But guys, a portfolio of only market investments, that lacks market risk protection. That lacks longevity risk protection. That lacks inflation risk protection. That lacks health risk protection. Nobody, especially people 55 and over, should have only market investments in their portfolio. So every one of your clients needs both of those in their portfolio. And we teach you and show you how to make it possible to get every single client to, oh, I don't know what happened to my computer there. We show you how to make, how to sell or include an annuity in every single solution that you show people. So there's no excuse for anybody coming in and not having an annuity. And somebody asked the question, what about bonds for safety? What's the problem with bonds for safety? The problem is really the interest rate risk. First of all, you can't generate income with bonds for safety. Like we talked about, you'd have to go all in with that. And there's a real risk to inflation if you go all in like that. but also the fact that there's that interest rate risk, especially now. With interest rates as low as they are, what's the likelihood of interest rates staying this low for 30 years, that time period of retirement? None. Zero. We
And
know that's
healthcare
not
risk.
gonna, and healthcare risk. I mean, you still have inflation risk, you still have healthcare risk, in addition to that, you have interest rate risk, you still have longevity risk, you still have all the risks to retirement, and you have the additional interest rate volatility risk, the idea that these bonds will go down when interest rates go up. And if you take money from a portfolio that goes down in value, you're decimating the portfolio. You're practically guaranteeing over a 30-year time frame that you're going to outlive your money. So again, make sure you're incorporating annuities into every solution that you show all of your clients. And if you're not sure about how to do that or what kind of plan to put together, I'm here. The guys at ECA are there. We're all here to help you to customize those kinds of solutions. So that's all I've got.
Jeff, we do have a couple questions that came in.
Sure.
From Michael, it says, with income now, do you do the market aspects first and then the safe money second?
With income now? Yeah, you know, when we looked at income now with the sale plan, let me go back to it. They're going to want to know, first of all, I'm going to have, again, this kind of gets into exactly how I present it. We're not going to dig deep on that. That's a whole hour unto itself. But let me just give you a general idea. You're right. I would probably present the sale plan in general first, comparing it to, first of all, I'd talk about all the ways that traditionally advisors have looked at getting income in retirement, because that's one of the things we want, income now. So what are some ways that people have done that? Well, let me talk a little bit about the past and how people used to do it, and we'll see why it's kind of fallen out of favor. In the past, people used bonds, but here's the problem with bonds. Too much of your money has to go into it. There's interest rate volatility. I'll go deeper into all that. I'll get them to tell me, yeah, that's too much money going into bonds. Yeah, with interest rates where they're at right now, that wouldn't make any sense. And yeah, because people are living longer, inflation is a real problem with bonds, so that's not ideal. You're right, that's not ideal. Then we'll look at this mix of stocks and bonds, and they'll tell me that, yeah, that helps with inflation, but that's not ideal either because our income isn't predictable. The markets have to cooperate. And the thought that the markets are going to cooperate, that's just not realistic. So, yeah, neither of those is ideal. And then I'll say, so let's look at the third option, which is this sale plan. So I will present it from front to back. I'll show them, here's how it would work, and here's how it solves those problems. Now, you're probably wondering, what are the investments in each of these branches or each of these buckets? Yeah, we were kind of wondering that. I will start with asset 4, which is the market money, because it is familiar to them. So yes, I would start with that. And then I work my way backward. Asset 4 is, here's what I would propose for asset 4, and here's why I think it makes sense. Here's what I would propose, this fixed indexed annuity for asset 3. Here's why I think it makes sense. Here's what I would propose, this fixed annuity or indexed annuity for asset 2. Here's why I think it makes sense. And finally, here's what I would propose for asset 1.
I think Trisha's bringing down the question box for you, Jeff, because there's a few other questions here I want you to take a look at.
Okay.
Casey says, for example, with caps and interest rates so low, do you use the income rider as the base for the rate of return in the FIA bucket?
Yep, that's kind of a presentation question for how you present an indexed annuity. And yeah, we have a script on the website for presenting indexed annuities with income riders or presenting income riders. So yeah.
We've got lots of questions about our bonds, the safe. Does everybody get why you should not be using bonds? Annuities and insurance products are your bond portfolio. There's not a safe bond portfolio unless you're using a bond portfolio with 1 or 2 or 3 year maturities, which is going to be a Zippo interest rate. So bonds are not a satisfactory way of getting a safe return. It's annuities that are going to give you the safe return.
Here's a question. Does the sales software automatically pull the top GLIB rider or income rider available, or is it an average of the riders available? No, the sales software doesn't care what investments you use. If you're looking for the top rider available, ECA can help you with that, and that's the one that I would present. So when I showed you this, I said that you guys were probably familiar with a lot of these illustrations, and I showed you one. This is an actual case that I was working on with somebody. And so when I wanted to know what's the top income rider out there, or what are the pros and cons of the income riders that are out there, I called Jeff Van Grinsven. And he showed me 3 and went through the pros and cons with me, and we settled on this one being the one that's going to work best with the client. So I'm not going to present 3 to the client. I would present the one that's going to work the best for the client. But ECA can help you identify which one will work in that particular instance, and it has comparison software so it can find the top income rider out there for you. Another question, are you utilizing bonds in the market risk portfolio? So annuities for the safe, but what about the market portfolio? No, I probably wouldn't, because the safety is covered by the annuities, and the annuities have advantages that the bonds don't. First of all, the annuity skips a problem that the bonds have, which is interest rate risk, and it solves problems that the bonds don't solve. It solves health risk problems, it solves longevity problems, it solves inflation problems, and it solves markets tend to cooperate problems. So it solves 4 problems that the bonds don't solve, and it cuts out a problem that the bonds have a problem that they don't have, which is interest rate volatility. So no, the growth is for growth, the safety is for safety. When you try and mix the two, then you're cobbling together something that doesn't work. It works, kinda, but that's what the client's going to tell you. Yeah, it works, kinda, but I mean, if there was something that could work better, we'd want that. Strategy number 2. I don't understand the question, sorry. Sorry. Other questions?
Nope, that looks like it's it.
And if Missy or Mike, if you understand that last question, I'll be happy to answer it.
I'm reading it, so you...
But I'm trying to read it and trying to talk at the same time, and I can't make sense of it.
Oh, you said discuss the risk first, then the safe. Yes. What are some of the things to avoid saying so you don't get bogged down?
When I discuss, again, you want to frame this, and again, the mechanics or the scripts or we could spend another hour talking exactly how you present these. But the basic idea is when you're talking about one of these plans is to say, look, we want income, right? Yes. Or if they want income, we want the ability to take income in the future, right? Right. So if we look at taking income, let's look at some ways that you could do it. Would bonds be a good way of doing it? Wouldn't be so good. Why not? Well, because interest rate risk and inflation. Okay, well, how about a mix of stocks and bonds? Wouldn't be so good. Why not? Well, because the income isn't predictable. There are ugly surprises. The markets have to cooperate. I mean, it would be okay, but it's not realistic. Well, let's look at a third option, and then I'll show them this. And what I'm showing them is why this hey, does this overcome the problem with bonds? Yes. Does this overcome the problems with the mix of stocks and bonds? Yes. So is this preferable to either of those? Yes. Do you get your income? Yes. Do you get your safety? Yes. Do you get your growth? Yes. So now should we look at what's in each of these? Yeah. Well, here's my proposal. Here's what I would propose, asset 4. I would propose putting money with X, and here's why I like X. Asset 3, that's an indexed annuity with an income rider. Here's why I like indexed annuities with income riders. Here's the company I think makes the most sense for your situation. So I'm not sure if that answers the question.
I think it does. Good. Thank you, Jeff, for this. This was, I think, extremely helpful to everybody. And if you got questions about, presenting whether to use the income or not, you get that information, as Jeff said, at the disclosure meeting during the asset weighting portion, during the income questions and during the asset weighting portions of the disclosure meeting. That's where you gather all this information to input into this. So thank you, Jeff. Any other questions before I let you guys go? Awesome. Well, thanks all for being on the call. And Jeff, excellent job. Thank you.
You bet.
See you guys.
Thanks, guys.